Logging workers. The number that decides who comes home tonight, and who doesn't. Loggers sit near the top of every fatality list in the developed world. The job is simple on paper. Cut down trees, move trees, repeat. The reality is 40 tons of timber falling in unpredictable directions. On uneven ground, often alone, often far from a hospital. A chainsaw doesn't care how many years of experience you have. One miscalculated cut, one branch under tension, and the tree decides the rest of your shift for you. The industry has a name for the worst version of this. A widowmaker. A broken branch that stays lodged overhead and falls without warning. Long after the tree below it has stopped moving. The fatality rate sits somewhere around 90 to 100 deaths per 100,000 workers a year. Compare that to a typical office job, sitting around one. B tier because the danger is mostly avoidable with training and equipment. And the industry has actually gotten safer over the last 2 decades. Commercial fishing. It's still brutal. It's no longer a death sentence by default. Commercial fishing pays its tax in drowning, not blood loss. Crews work 18 to 20-hour shifts on boats that pitch in freezing water. Hauling gear with machinery that doesn't pause for a slipped hand. Capsizing, falling overboard, and equipment failure account for most of the deaths. Alaska's crab and salmon fleets are infamous for a reason. Cold water kills in minutes, not hours. Even a strong swimmer in 40-degree water has roughly 10 minutes before hypothermia takes the decision out of their hands. B tier because, like logging, modern safety gear and tracking technology have cut the death rate nearly in half since the 1990s. Roofers. The ocean still doesn't negotiate. Roofing is the job everyone underestimates because it looks like physical labor. Not danger. It's a fall hazard wearing a tool belt. Most roofing deaths aren't dramatic structural collapses. They're a guy stepping backward off an edge he forgot was there. Falls account for roughly 8 out of every 10 roofing deaths. And they're consistently logged as the single most common cause of death across the entire construction industry. Year after year. The job doesn't require a hurricane or a freak accident. It requires one bad step, on one ordinary Tuesday, 30 feet up. Garbage. C tier because the danger is almost entirely preventable with harnesses and guardrails that plenty of crews simply skip to save time. Nobody pictures a sanitation worker when they think dangerous job. The numbers disagree. Collection routinely ranks ahead of police work and firefighting in fatality rate, which surprises almost everyone who hasn't looked at the data. Collectors get struck by traffic, crushed by their own trucks during backing maneuvers, and caught in compactor machinery that doesn't know the difference between cardboard and an arm. The fatality rate rivals roofing, driven mostly by vehicles, not garbage. C tier because the danger comes almost entirely from other drivers and aging equipment, not from the job itself. Truck driving. Fix the traffic problem and the rate drops hard. Driving for a living turns a normal commute into an 8-hour-a-day lottery. Long highway hours, fatigue, tight delivery windows, and other drivers who aren't paying attention combine into the single largest category of work deaths in the country by total number, even if not by rate. Federal hours of service rules exist specifically because fatigue behind the wheel of an 80,000-pound vehicle kills people in ways that fatigue at a desk simply doesn't. The danger tax here isn't paid in one dramatic event. It's paid in cumulative exposure. Spend 40 hours a week on the highway for 30 years and the odds eventually catch up to someone. C tier because most individual trips are statistically safe. Structural iron and steel workers. The job just runs the lottery thousands of times. This is the job people picture when they think guy on a beam. No harness, 20 stories up. That image is mostly accurate. Ironworkers assemble the skeleton of buildings and bridges before the safety nets. elevators, or finished floors exist. A fall here usually means a fall from height that nothing below will stop. Fall protection is hard to use practically while connecting a steel beam that's still swinging on a crane line. The fatality rate sits well above logging and fishing. A tier because, unlike roofing, the danger isn't from skipping safety gear. It's structurally built into doing the job at all. Pilots. There's no version of assembling a skyscraper's frame that happens at ground level. Commercial airline flying is statistically one of the safest activities on Earth. This category isn't talking about commercial airlines. It's talking about crop dusters, bush pilots, helicopter loggers, and small charter operations flying into terrain that doesn't show up clearly on radar. Small aircraft crash for boring reasons. Bad weather decisions. Mechanical failure on planes that don't get the maintenance budget of a 737. And what aviation investigators call controlled flight into terrain. A perfectly functioning plane flown straight into a mountain nobody saw coming through the clouds. Underground mining. A tier because the danger scales inversely with the size of the operation. The smaller the plane, the smaller the safety margin. Underground mining has topped worst-case scenario lists since before the Industrial Revolution. And it still earns the spot. Coal dust ignites. Methane pockets sit invisible until a spark finds them. Tunnels collapse under their own weight when support beams shift by inches nobody notices in time. The job doesn't just carry one bad risk. It carries nearly every risk on this list at once. Compressed into a space with a single exit. Sometimes miles underground. Black lung disease alone has killed more miners over the last century than every collapse and explosion combined. A slow death that doesn't even show up on annual fatality counts because it takes 20 years to finish the job. The Counter-Objection. S tier because mining doesn't just risk your life on shift. It risks the life you were supposed to have after retirement too. Here's the part where someone with a desk job decides none of this applies to them. Fair. Nobody's claiming a marketing job carries the same fatality rate as ironworking. But the danger tax doesn't only get paid in death. It gets paid in knees that don't bend right at 50. Backs that lock up doing yard work. And hearing that quietly disappears 2 decades early. The desk job pays a different tax. Sitting 8 or more hours a day for 30 straight years. Which carries its own well-documented bill in cardiovascular and metabolic health. Some research suggests the average office worker accumulates more total sitting hours across a career than a coal miner spends underground across one. Nobody escapes the invoice. Conclusion. Some people just get billed in dollars and stiffness instead of in fingers and years. Look at the jobs on this list side by side and the pattern isn't randomness. It's exposure. Height, cold water, heavy machinery, highway miles, thin air, compressed tunnels. Strip away the job titles and every single one comes down to the same thing. How much raw physical risk a person absorbs to keep the rest of the economy running. The food on your table got there because a fisherman absorbed the cold. The building you work in stood up because an ironworker absorbed the height. The trash left your curb because someone absorbed the traffic.